Time to go through the papers now, and joining us this morning is political commentator, columnist and founder of the Contrarian Prize, Ali Mirage, and journalist and author Nikki Hodgson. Good morning to you both. And Nikki, let's start first, shall we, with a really, truly horrific story in Liverpool on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, so this is the story about this poor woman who was murdered, basically, shot in the head in a pub in Liverpool on Christmas Eve. She was 26. We don't know very much else about her. But what we do know is that this wasn't... The police don't think that she was the target. They don't know why this happened. They don't know
crossfire,
what... It was well, maybe crossfire. They don't know what the motives of the gunman were. They don't know very much, actually, at this stage. But they don't think it was a targeted attack. It sounds like a terrible situation of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, you know, this story does come off the back of another shooting, of course. The poor little girl, Olivia Seppel, was it, who was shot a couple of months ago now. And I think it just raises so many questions about, you know, gun control.
Yeah.
We've never had a gun control problem in Britain before, have we? I mean, not like this. It seems the incidence, the ease at which people can procure weapons seems to be going up.
Well, Ali, Liverpool has always been a bit of a crime hotspot, I think it's fair to say. But gun crime, is that something new?
Well, look, I mean, we've got a gun crime issue. We've also got a knife crime problem as well. I mean, you know, I was actually on my way here this morning having a chicken shawarma down on the edge of the road. Yeah, I was actually. Sorry, it was about 5 in the morning. Sorry, apologies to reveal this to your viewers. I need to get out more. But there was an incident happening right in front of me. 2 guys running out of a car, about to attack a guy. And I looked at my watch. I thought I better make it out of the time in case Crime Stoppers call me. It's quite seriously. I mean, it is very worrying. I mean, I thought we were going to be witnessing something horrific there. So, yes, gun crime is an issue. Knife crime is a problem as well. A lot of this is related to drug. I mean, in this particular case, the one that Nikki's talking about, we don't know what the issue is. Yeah. We'll find out. But in the case of Olivia Pratt-Corbell, who was killed in her own home, for heaven's sake, when one suspect was pursuing someone else, utterly unbelievable. A lot of the stuff, particularly related to knife crime, seems to be drug-related, and that's the fundamental problem. And you've also got the police under pressure, already stretched. So it is very worrying at the moment. I do think there's a collapse of confidence.
A fly just flew up my nose in the studio here.
You okay?
Yeah, I think I might... No, I'm not going to sneeze. Everything is under control.
I mean, it's just almost impossible to comprehend, isn't it? Especially for this woman's family. I mean, 26 years old, and on Christmas Eve,
absolutely
celebrating with her family and friends in the pub.
And nobody, I mean, when we think about crime in this country, okay, certainly in London, you think, okay, there's a risk I might be stabbed, actually. You think about those things. You don't think there's a risk I might be shot.
No.
That's what's kind of so devastating and appalling about this. And also, coming so soon off the back of that other shooting.
Yes.
That will surely make people in Merseyside feel quite nervous.
Yeah, no, exactly. For the community there, it must be just so shocking, as you say, just in such quick succession. Ali, should we have a look at The Guardian? The comeback of Nigel Farage and a Labour surge.
Well, your colleague Nigel Farage, who's doing extremely well on your channel, is also part of Reform UK, which is doing quite well in the polls. And you know that Nigel historically was the one who forced the Conservative Party and David Cameron into granting that referendum on the EU because they were worried about him. He does have a certain way, a lot of charisma. He gets his point across very clearly. And what they're saying here is that there are swathes of Tory MPs, including Ian Duncan-Smith, Dominic Raab and Theresa Villiers, who could all be potentially at risk of losing their seats. Now, if you're someone like Dominic Raab down in Esher and Walton, you've got barely a 3,000 majority over the Lib Dems. It doesn't take much for, let's say, Reform UK to stand in that area, take a few votes away from you, 1,500 votes, and you've lost your seat. And Ian Duncan-Smith has got a very marginal majority now over Labour. The young lady there who was standing against him, who's been working very hard in the community there. So this is a serious problem, and this just ties into the general woes of the Conservative Party now. 20 points behind Labour. It was much, much worse after that summer love affair that the party had with Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, which ended in utter disaster. And they're still trying to recover from that, and that's what we're seeing here.
Yes, it does look like the Conservatives are going to be squeezed from both the left and the right of the political spectrum come the next election.
That's right. And look, Rishi Sunak is doing his best. He's trying to work hard in a very difficult set of circumstances. It is really challenging, but he's not a miracle worker. So at the moment on this trajectory, the Tories are in for a hammering. The question is not whether they're going to lose, but the degree of the loss at the moment. But look, we are living in volatile times. 2 years to go. We'll see what happens, but that's the trajectory at the moment.
Very true.
Nikki, should we have a look at the eye and a breakthrough test for Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so only a couple of weeks ago we had a really positive news story about Alzheimer's, about the drug that's been tested and trialled called lecanemab, which will actually slow down Alzheimer's in certain kinds of patients. But one of the sticking points for rolling it out in the NHS would be the diagnostic test that we currently do for Alzheimer's, which is a little bit complicated. But this is a new diagnostic test which we can now use. And it should be ready to use by 2023. It's very, very straightforward. It works on identifying biomarkers in the brain. And yeah, it's great that this is coming off the back of the other story about the drug, because the two will kind of work hand in hand. I think what's really positive and so encouraging is that after years of not really having any new breakthroughs around Alzheimer's, we're having two in quick succession. So it feels like we're kind of at the precipice point in being able to deal with it better, because numbers of Alzheimer's are going up as well.
Well, we're all living longer, aren't we? Which is probably part of it, but it's just the most horrific disease. That's really, really positive news.
That's nice to have some good news. We don't often see good news.
And I thought I'd hunt some out for you today.
That is most certainly good news.
Thank you.
Ali, so there's mounting pressure sends head teachers back to classroom. What's going on here?
Well, this is the Times reporting that an increasing number of head teachers have had enough. They want to go back into the classroom. They miss it. They find that the pressure and the bureaucracy, the paperwork and the pressure of being a head teacher is not worth the hassle. I think this has been exacerbated by COVID. Now, everything has been exacerbated by COVID these days, but it does seem to be the case that in certain areas during the pandemic, head teachers had a lot of responsibility on them to make sure that everyone in their school was safe. And then, the head teacher is obviously the figurehead of a school, but they can't control every single aspect of everyone's safety in the school. So that is putting a lot of pressure on people, and they've had enough. So the figures basically are saying here that the number of people actually wanting to return to the classroom for frontline teaching has gone up from 14% in 2019 to 17% now, and the numbers wanting to actually become head teachers have actually gone down. So this is an issue, and this comes on the back of teacher strikes. We know that you've got industrial action going on across the public sector, but teaching is one of the areas, and that's really a disaster when it comes to kids' education. You look at what happened in the pandemic when kids were unfortunately unable to go to school. There's still catch-up going on right now, and we've got serious problems in education and skills in this country, which is going to lead to productivity problems.
Also, there was quite a lot of pressure on head teachers with the claims of grade inflation and so on, the way they came up with marks.
Well, it wasn't
quite a lot
ideal.
of heat over that as well.
Emily, that was not ideal. We know the whole problem with the algorithm and all the rest of it, and Gavin Williamson. It was a complete nightmare scenario. There was grade inflation. That's just a fact. There was. Those grades. Those grades are now out of kilter, and it's not fair on the students. They did their best, but it is massively out of kilter, and now they're trying to bring that back into line. So it's not been an easy period for teachers
I'm sure not
or
all
for
of the students did their best. some revised more than others, that's for sure.
I think what's interesting about the story is only a few years ago we were having debates about whether we should have general managers brought into schools to be head teachers. Do you remember that? And everybody was sort of up in arms about it. Well, they don't have any of the teaching skills. But maybe, and all my family are in teaching, so I kind of, I venerate teachers. But what I think is interesting is that the step up from being, a teacher to being a head is just, they're markedly different jobs. And maybe what they do need is way more support to learn to kind of do the management aspect, and maybe more awareness of what they're actually going to be doing in that role.
It's the same with anything, though, isn't it? As you climb that greasy pole with a career, you get further and further away from
the coalface.
Yeah. What you
any
actually want
job.
to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same. It's exactly the same.
The NHS, though, the NHS managers, they're rarely frontline staff or have been frontline staff, so perhaps there are probably pros and cons to both ways of doing things.
Should we have a look at dentistry? There's something a little bit different in the Daily Express, but it is worrying, isn't it, this statistic? 25% of older people fear that they will have to do their own DIY dentistry, Nikki.
Yeah, I should have probably talked about the Alzheimer's story now so that we'll end it on a positive note, but I think this is really important.
Yes.
I I think, has anyone got an NHS dentist anymore? Because I've tried being pregnant. You're meant to be able to get free dental treatment, and I can't get on the books anywhere.
Oh, no.
So it's just a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, this is a survey that's been done saying that 1 in 4 older people fear they will have to pull their own teeth out because they can't get an NHS dentist appointment.
Wow.
And more than 47 million NHS dental appointments have been lost since lockdown in England alone. The Department of Health claims that dentists practicing in the NHS rose by over 500 last year, but it doesn't matter if you still can't get on the books of a surgery.
So what is that? Why can't people get an appointment? Because you think it's because dentists are closing, but that would indicate there's more of them.
I think we already had a shortage, and then we've got more people claiming for NHS treatment. But the numbers don't tally. The numbers don't tally. We've had a problem with NHS dentistry for a long time, at least a decade.
I remember a couple of months ago, I think, or a few weeks ago, there were stories warning people not to take their own dentistry into their own hands, not to pull out your teeth.
Saw that.
Something like out of the Middle Ages. So it seems to be. And then there were stories about how in Somerset there are no dentists that you can now join as an NHS patient. So things aren't looking great in the dentistry world. It's a lucrative job.
It's a very lucrative job, but Emily, it's not just dentistry. I mean, you look at GPs.
Yeah.
Now, they're saying that they're overworked and they want to work fewer hours. I mean, if you can get through to your GP for an appointment, you're being very lucky because, frankly, most of the time, you can't get past the dragon receptionist. I mean, it's a complete nightmare. And I do understand that they have pressures on them. But at the moment, you've got industrial action across the public sector. You've got GPs demoralised. You've got to pull out your own teeth. At the moment, the feeling really is Britain is not working. I mean, back to that poster from 1978 when the Tories were saying that Labour isn't working. At the moment, it feels like Britain's not working. I mean, it really is.
But it is Boxing Day.
Indeed.
And people have a lot to be grateful for regardless.
That is true.
Hopefully.
Just don't pull your own tooth out today.
Yes,
I would
not
advise.
today.
You couldn't pay me to pull out my own teeth. But this is the thing with dentistry as well. You often can't wait, can you? It's one of those things. I mean, you've got toothache.
Absolutely.
Well, people drink a bottle of whiskey, don't they, and then get their friend, partner.
Oh, I'd need something like that. I need a bottle of gin, I think. Well, Ali and Nikki, that is time, I'm afraid. But thank you so much for another brilliant newspaper review. And you're staying with us, aren't you, for the rest of the programme?
We
So lots more to come.